another bit of the news recently that Rashford and his tweeting has become a headline again. I'm big on like mental health. Like I try and not like slander people with abuse. Yeah, I'm a football fan that gives criticism where it's due. All this stuff. Yeah,
it's all opinion based.
It's all opinion based. They've put a tweet out saying the way Marcus Rashford is being treated is absolutely disgusting. It's cruel. It's abuse. Right. Don't get me started on that. And then he retweets it and says, I appreciate your support. It is abuse and has been for months. Enough is enough. For starter, Rashford, stop crying. Right. Sort your shit out on the pitch. Delete your socials. And start performing. You're not performing. Your body language is a disgrace on the pitch. And this isn't abuse. It's fans criticising you because you're getting paid a lot. You're our star man. You need to start performing. And you need to fight. You need to understand what abuse is and what's criticism. Because you play for one of the biggest teams in the world and you're going to get it no matter what.
I think I have a mixed emotion on it because I think he is somebody that, in terms of the way the media speak about him, he gets held accountable for performances and poor performances a lot more than anybody else in that team. And from the media is how a lot of the fans get their perceptions about football. And I do think he gets talked about a lot more than some other players. And I understand maybe that comes with the status of the player.
He's the star man for United.
Maybe the money. So I don't agree. I think, one, he should be able to say what he wants. Two, everybody else should be able to say what they want. I know there's a genuine split in Old Trafford, and I'd be inclined to say maybe it's more heavily against him at the moment. I think people are getting fed up of watching him, but then we're singing his name in the stands. We're trying to get him to deliver.
Yeah, Ten Hag's come out and says he needs the support. We sing his chants. Like, we do support the guy when he's on the pitch.
I don't dispute.
But then he's walking around most of the time, throwing his hands about, and everyone just focuses on Bruno throwing his hands about. He's got Rashford there with his attitude that absolutely stinks on the pitch. But yeah, United fans should go, come on, Rashford, and like support him. Like, I don't get it.
I think you should. I think you should always back the players.
Well, when they're like just walking around the pitch.
I think it's difficult, yeah, but there's never a point where I'm never going to be. People did it to different players in the past. Fellaini, the guy'd get booed when he came on. He was someone who held himself very well as a professional.
Yeah, let's just put
Maguire.
Yeah, let's put one thing straight. I've never booed a player off.
No, but what I'm saying is there's a way where people might hurl abuse, might react negatively, and I think you're well justified to do whatever you want. If you're a match-going fan, if you want to cheer the manager's decision to take a player off, whatever. I personally don't really do that myself very often. No. I don't really get it. I don't really think my individual input there is going to be received or make any difference. I am getting frustrated watching him, and what I would say is whether he's got a part to play and how big or small that is, I don't really want to comment on because I find it difficult. I think the media outlets do highlight a lot that this guy does, whether it's right or wrong. He does definitely get accused of more things than other people should do, and he's not helped himself at times this season. One, with his performances, and two, with some of his issues off the pitch.
He's always going to be in the headlines. It was like Beckham. If you're like the star man and you're getting paid that much, you're always going to be in the headlines. You've got to take that responsibility, surely.
But I think it says a lot now, where I think it takes a lot for your own fans to sort of be like a bit fed up. Like, whether it's because they know you're better and they're a big supporter of you still and they want more, or whether they've genuinely, because I think there is football fans, Manchester United fans, that would happily not see this guy play again.
But they're acting like...
But I don't think either end of that is correct.
They're acting like the whole fan base is against him and has been for months.
I don't think that's aimed at the fan base. I think that's aimed at football fans in general. Some people from the fan base giving him abuse. Why should
you care what other fans from other clubs think of you?
No, I think it might be that he might be thinking that the media are always highlighting me every time something happens. Then the fans see that, so they're more on my back. And I think if the media weren't so heavy on Rashford, would the fan perception be different? 100%. Football fans are fickle. All it takes is these things to come out online.
So I didn't want to have a massive rant because it's hard to say things without upsetting certain people. Because I don't mean to be like a dick. Like, I'm trying to be fair, and I've already said that I'm big for mental health and that. I don't want abuse, but there's a fine line between it. But you're never going to change the media. They've been like this for years. They're always going to be the same. So in my eyes, if I was a football player, haven't you just got to just take that and perform on the pitch to shut them up?
No, that's 100% true. And he came out and did his interview, and you're thinking, okay, does he turn around? Scores the goal against City. It's a great goal. Means nothing. We lose the game. And then we're expecting performances. One thing I'll say is I'm one of these people that's never really cared about, for example, you could say, oh, he gets paid 350 grand a week. He needs to perform. And I'm like, I don't care how much he gets paid. Even if some of
that's
my
the club's decision, isn't it?
But even if some of my money I'm paying somewhere down the line goes to paying his wages, I still don't care. I go to watch Manchester United because it was a team I was brought up to watch, and I support them when they're good and when they're bad. And I'll turn around to you and might say, oh, Rashford wasn't great today. He's been poor for weeks. And you want him to turn it around, but what I would say is I don't feel too passionately about it. I support him maybe more than I'd give other players credit for because he came through the academy. He was very young. He's one of the leaders in the team now. I'm expecting a bit more. I would, as the manager, I know he's supposedly injured now. I don't know if he actually is or not, but he's been out of 2 matchday squads. I would have dropped him anyway, is the way I would have dealt with it. You then take him out the limelight. Maybe you don't take him out the limelight. Maybe people are then talking about the fact Marcus Rashford has been dropped. But I think after several games, you then maybe get a bit of breathing space in terms of it's maybe been forgotten after a few games. Then you bring him back in. But I don't know. I'm hoping he turns it around. I don't see a world where Manchester United get rid of him.
You had the part where Sancho ended up coming out and said that he's got favouritism and all that. And that's why Ten Hag doesn't drop Rashford.
No, unless
he came up late to a meeting, he did drop him, to be fair, but he doesn't drop him for these bad performances. He carried on playing him, and I said to you, didn't I? I was like, maybe, I'm not saying I agree with Sancho, but maybe there was a bit of truth in that. He does have a bit of a...
I do think you earn your own right there in the same sense as Jadon Sancho has never delivered anywhere near close to the quality Marcus Rashford has for Manchester United. Does that mean that you can then put in some stinkers and be excused? I'm not saying that completely, but I've never watched a game that Sancho's played for United and walked away and gone, he was shit hot today, what a player we've signed. He's been a disappointment from the day he signed, and I would have sold him in summer before even any of this even happened this year, because I've already seen enough in 2 or 3 seasons, and that's not... He could go and prove me wrong, and I know he doesn't care what I think anyway, but I've seen enough of him already in a United shirt. Rashford, we've seen the quality, and we've seen it in dribs and drabs. It's frustrating. He's one of our own, so maybe that's why I feel differently about it. I want him to turn it around, but I feel like this is just the way his career is going to be the whole time he's at United. He's going to be these patches of issues on and off the pitch and form, and then dips in form.
It's been like that for years. Yeah, anything can happen with him. I personally, if Ten Hag leaves, I personally would have Sancho back just for another season, just see what he does. But that's just me. I think I'm quite on my own on that one, to be fair. But I think Sancho links play better than Rashford. We'll get onto that another time. Should we move on to this next subject then?
Let's go for it. Otherwise, we'll talk about United all podcast.
Yeah.
People love that.
So, just going to ask you. I saw a post a while back. Said, out of these group of players, which one is most likely to win a Ballon d'Or in their career? So the players
it's
are...
like I can only pick one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which one's the most likely in their career? Phil Foden, Bukayo Saka, Alejandro Garnacho, and Cole Palmer.
Phil Foden for me, easily.
Even if like Pep leaves at the end of the season, it's still Phil Foden.
He, out of those, I think is the best technical player.
Yeah.
I think he's already obviously won more than the rest of the people on that list as well. But in terms of what he can do and how good he is, and the fact he's still got quite a long career ahead of him, and now he's got a taste of success. He's won all the big trophies that he can win for his club. may well go on to get success with his country. He's got a long career ahead of him in that respect as well. I think Saka's fantastic. I think Garnacho's still a fantastic prospect. I know he's been good this season, but I think he's still got a way to go to what you'd expect to be his best. Whereas I feel like Foden is already streets ahead of all them in a different bracket, and he could still get better again. So I think it's not to say that I don't think the others could, but I'd 100% put my money on him because I think he's even in the question for this year's.
Yes, but I think if Pep leaves City, depending if City get a really top-notch manager and they do great, but it's very hard to top what Pep has done. I would say Phil Foden as well, just because of the technical ability he's got. I think second is Garnacho, really, for Ballon d'Or. But
I think because his ceiling could be really high, Garnacho.
Yeah. But Phil Foden, I think, should do what Bellingham's done. I don't like to see that because I want to see him in the Prem.
This guy wants to play at Man City for his career. It's one of those. And I think the only way...
Even if City fall off, though, I think he should still go to a Barca, Real Madrid or something.
I don't think City do fall off. It would take the financial charges to come into play for them to be not a Champions League team anymore. And I think I think that would take a lot. You see, even if Guardiola went, they're that well run, I think a good manager comes straight back in. I think if they sell players, they replace them well. And I know we should give Guardiola a lot of credit, so I'm not saying they'll just walk this when he leaves, because I don't think that is the case. And we don't know when he'll leave, if he'll leave. But I still think Foden's already established, he already sort of knows what it is to be a City player. If the manager left, he could carry on those values, teach them to the new players. He's potential future Manchester City captain, and could go down as one of the greatest players they've ever produced. So to me, I see him staying there, and I think he is one of the front runners for the Ballon d'Or this season. I think that's been hindered by the fact they've crashed out of Europe early.
I think it leans more towards Bellingham now, doesn't it?
I think there's a world where it depends how it all falls. If Manchester City win the Premier League and he continues to perform when he is on the pitch, obviously he's been left out of the squad today.
Wins the Euros.
If he wins the Euros and is important for us, I think it does depend on, do Madrid win the Champions League or somebody else? Because if PSG win the Champions League, Mbappe will win the Ballon d'Or.
The thing is, though,
because I think they're begging to give it to Mbappe anyway. They've just not been able to so far. Yeah.
If Real Madrid, right, say, okay, let's give you this scenario. If Real Madrid win their league, which they have, and Bellingham wins the Euros. So if Bellingham wins the Euros, Phil Foden wins the Euros.
Yeah.
And Phil Foden's also won his league. Who wins?
I think Bellingham's still more likely.
Right? So that brings it to my argument. If Phil Foden is at Real Madrid, Phil Foden gets it.
I don't think I can't see him at Madrid in a million years.
I honestly think if you go abroad to these Real Madrid and these foreign teams, you're more likely to win a Ballon d'Or than a Prem.
I was weighing it more on the fact I think Foden has been City's best player this season and potentially the best player in the Premier League. But I do think it took X amount of weeks for him to hit that form, like his highest amount of form. Maybe I'm misinterpreting that. I can't remember back to the start of the season now.
He's
but
in
if I
and
remember
out.
rightly, it took
He's
a little
in and out
while.
of the squad as well.
And that's what I mean. You can't ever think of City players in the same way. Excuse me. Apart from a few of them, like Edison, Rodri seem to play the majority of the time. Even Edison's been out of the team. But that team gets rotated so heavily. Someone like Foden still isn't in my head as a nailed-on starting player, whereas Bellingham is one of the first names on the team sheet, the same way that like your Bruno Fernandes would be at Manchester United. Yeah. So I think if Foden would have been in the team consistently all year, which never happens in a Pep system.
No.
Bellingham hit the ground running from his first game and hasn't really let up that standard at all. And they've gone through, they're further than City are in the Champions League, knocking them out. So I'd edge it to Bellingham for that reason, whereas I think Foden grew into the season and then has been very good since. Whereas I think Bellingham from game one was at that level.
Yeah.
So
gets important goals as well, Bellingham.
Yeah, I think Bellingham's the front runner because I think Real Madrid are very likely to have success because we know how they can deliver in the Champions League.
Mbappe could also still win League, Champions League and the Euros. So
yeah,
but
my gut feeling is they go out of the Champions League, whether they might make the final. I think they probably make the final. I think Madrid will beat them, and I don't think France will win the Euros, but that's because I think that England will win the Euros because I'm an idiot. and it's coming home.
Because you're in a day and it's coming home.
Has anyone said it's coming home yet? It's
No.
April and I've said it.
Probably at the end of the season, everyone will be like, right, so it's coming home.
Yeah, we're just waiting for the Prem to get out of the way.
Yeah.